Step 7 is the project summary task. When you are looking at your project template and you look at Gantt chart format, to the right hand side where we turned on outline number before, if I turn it off and turn it on, you can see the outline number. I now want to turn on project summary task. What the project summary task does is it tells me the duration of the entire project and the start and the finish date of the entire project. And I need to know that. It shows as a summary task on the Gantt chart, but it's actually sort of like grey instead of black because it's a project summary task, not a standard summary task. So this start, finish and duration is derived by the subtasks. Now this name here has been pulled through from one of our earlier steps. It got pulled through from file, info and project information and advanced properties. It actually got pulled through from this title here. I could change it there to be specific to this template, but I'm actually just going to leave it as it is, that I'm telling them this is a 24-hour project and I want them to enter the job number here. So they can just type over that and put what they want in there, but it's part of the template, so I'm going to save that. Now the other thing as well is what makes it easy for people to edit things, because you might find that you click quite a bit when you want to change something. I mentioned the function key F2 is really handy for editing a cell, but if you're not a key person, you may want to go into File, go into Options, and under Display you may want to display the entry bar, and if I go OK to that, we now have this entry bar, which makes it really easy, like a formula bar in Excel, to edit something that's sitting in a particular row. So do turn that on as well. Now the other thing you may consider for your template is the rounding of bars. Now I'm actually going to just double click this time scale and just up it a little bit so you can see better. I might take it to 75 and that's a bit better, or even further still, let's take it to 100. So you can increase the magnification using this without screwing up your time scale. Now what project does by default is it rounds bars to whole days, and I actually think you want that in a 24. Oh no, maybe not. If you have a task that's 1 hour, it's going to show as a whole day on the Gantt chart. So consider this with your template. On the Gantt chart format tab in the ribbon is a layout button, and what you can say is you can say I don't want project to round bars to whole days, and when you go OK, you'll see a slight shift in the actual length of the bars and the position of the bars. So that's an option to think about with your template as well. Another option to think about is whether you actually want to see the time or not. You can at any point in time, not to be a pun, but you can go to File, you can go to Options, and at any point in time you can change the date format to include or exclude the time if that's what you want. So I'm actually going to show it, but on here it's excluding it, so I'll go back into File, go back into Options and change the date format to the very first option, which includes the time. So that's something you can turn on and turn off at any point in time, as well as the scaling as you saw up here. Now another thing is I like to add notes to my project, and I don't want to clutter up the tasks as such. I often like to record events, who I spoke to, what the phone number was and where we got to and what we agreed on, and this impacts on my project, but I don't necessarily want to show it in the task name column. What you could do if I move the split over is you could go to the add new column option here, or you could right click any column for that matter, but if I go add new column, it's sort of tucked out of the way, and if I press N for notes, I've now got a column here where I can add notes. So if I provide this for people, they may actually use it. Like I would appreciate a template that actually had a column where I could write notes, and I'll just leave them write detailed notes here. And so they can just use that for writing detailed notes, and I can just move that over a little bit so you don't actually see it if you don't want to. So think about adding a notes column to your template, and we'll look at other columns you might add to your template as well. Step 8. Step 8 is creating links between the tasks. At the moment, all the tasks are happening on the project start date. To create links, I do want to see the predecessor column, so I have sort of moved this over it so I can see this populate. One way to link your task is simply to select a group of tasks. I'm just hitting the shift down arrow, and then on the task tab in the ribbon you've got this chain link. And so this will link your tasks, and you can see them flowing now. Anything that goes that light shade of indigo is basically been affected by what you just did. So if you see this indigo color, it means that what you just did affected the end date of these two tasks, not the start, the duration of these two tasks, and the start and end of this group of tasks here. So don't panic if you see the color, it just means that what you did has affected those cells. And you also see the predecessor column is now populated. So when row 3 finishes, row 4 will start. All right, so the predecessor to row 3 is row 2. The predecessor to row 4 is row 3. So it's telling you who precedes that particular task. Now you can actually select this group of tasks again and unlink them with this button here, and that will unlink the tasks and basically clear the predecessor column. There are shortcut keys which are mentioned when you rest on these buttons. Control F2 will link the tasks, and Control Shift F2 will unlink the tasks. Some people will also just go down through this column and enter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and they'll link the tasks that way. I'm just going to delete those, and I'm just going to use the icon. So if I select this group of tasks here, I can link. If I select this group of tasks here, I can link. And if I select this group of tasks here, I can link. So I've linked all my subtasks together. But I now want to link some of my summary tasks. So I may say that when this milestone is achieved, the next summary task can begin. So I select these two tasks and I want to link them. And so that's done that. When this particular phase is finished, then this phase will start. Now I'll go down to the next one and say when that finishes, this will start, and I'll link these two. And so things are getting quite sprawled now, and our project is now 39 days, and our start and finish is showing on our project summary task, which we turned on by going to Gantt chart format and turning on the project summary task. Okay, now as we scroll a little bit to the right, we can see the entire project, and if we can't, we can just double click the timescale and say, look, how about we take it from 100 down to say 90? And if we do that, now we can see the entire project on our screen. But as things sprawl, let's take that back to 100. You may actually want to click on a task, and I want to see the symbol or the bar that goes with that task. So on the task tab, you've got this scroll to task button. If you click it, it brings the bar or the symbol for that task into view. If I click on this summary task and I can't see it on the Gantt chart, then I scroll to task. If I click on this task and I can't see it on the Gantt chart, I scroll to task. So that's also an option if reducing the magnification isn't easy for your project. But I'm just going to double click this, and I'm just going to take this back down to say 75%. Or actually I'll just leave it 85 and okay that. And then I will scroll a little bit to the right, and I can clearly see my project on my Gantt chart. So think about linking your tasks, and let's look at the next step. Step 9. In your template, you have linked your tasks, but you may want to give examples of the different types of links that you can create in project. This link here, for example, is a finish start. When row 2 finishes, row 3 will start. We could change this 2 here from a finish start to a start start, and that would be simply by typing 2SS on top of it. And now those two tasks start at the same time. The alternative might be a 2FF, which is a finish, which means these two tasks will now both finish at the same time. Or I could have a 2SF, enter, which means that the first task will start when the second task is finished. I find that confusing. And if I put it back to just a 2, then that is back to just a finish start. So think about your template and whether it's necessary for you to put some different types of relationships besides a finish start in your template. Step 10. This is probably not necessary in your template if you've been very generic, but I want to cover it just in case. But not only do we think about the types of relationships we have between our tasks, we also think about leads and lags. So for example, if I was being quite specific and maybe this task here was actually like lay concrete, I may want to allow a certain amount of time for it to dry. So I'm going to change this to a 2 finish start plus 72 hours to allow the concrete to dry. And so there you see a delay or a lag between those two tasks. So think about if that's necessary in your template. The more generic your template, the less necessary that's going to be. But sometimes it's handy to give people an example who are going to be using your template. I'm just going to hit undo, so it undoes that, and I'll hit undo again to undo the lay concrete. Now just a moment on the undo as well. You have 20 levels of undo by default. You may feel that you want to increase that to 99, that's the maximum. You can go to file, you can go to options, you can go to advanced, and in the top right corner here you can see I've increased my undo levels to 99. Some days are really bad, so I need lots of undos. So think about lags, and as far as the lead go, if I need to give you an example of a lead, perhaps these two tasks can't start at the same time, but they also this task doesn't need to wait till this one's finished. So I create an overlap or a lead by going to start plus 25%. I'll give them a 25% head start. This is a 5-day task, so that's a 1.25 day head start, and then this will proceed to kick in. So that is when it's a start, it's a plus, and you can use percentages. Or if I go F2 and edit that, I could change that to 2 days. So they have a 2-day head start, and then I'm going to get going with this next task. If I prefer my line to come in from the end of that task, I'll press F2 and I'll change it from a start to a finish start, but then I have to change this to a minus, and I'll go minus 3 days. And so what that'll do is it'll come in from the end of the first task and back and in 3 days. So it's a finish start, it's a minus, but if it's a start, it's a plus. You can use an exact amount or unit, or you can use a percentage. But I'm just going to put mine back to 2. But I did want to just quickly cover leads and lags in case there was a place for them, either as an example or if your template is quite specific, to include those in your template. Whatever you do, do not, I feel, edit your date and times and your durations. Well, your date and times, your durations absolutely, but do not edit your date and times. What you will do is inadvertently put a constraint on. Let me just show you. If I decide this is not going to happen on the 15th of the May, in fact it'll be the 16th, I have now put a constraint on that task, whether I intended to or not, and that's indicative by this little square appearing in what they call the indicator column. So this square is saying this task now, because I pushed it out to the 16th, this task will now start no earlier than the 16th. Doesn't matter what you do beforehand, this task is not happening any earlier than the 16th, and you have to manage that. So I would rather have seen a 1-day lag added to this to push this out to the 16th rather than actually edit this. So I'm going to put this back to the default. If you double click it and go to advanced, I'm going to put it back to as soon as possible, and okay, and that's how you get rid of the constraint, by putting it back to as soon as possible. If I need this to be on the 16th, then I'll go to finish start plus 1 day, and that will push that out to the 16th without effectively adding a constraint. So watch out for constraints as well. Not good in a template. You don't want to see any constraints, I feel, appearing in that indicator column. And I will now just put that back to a 2. So a little bit on leads and lags and whether they have a place in your template. And I'm going to save my template so I don't lose anything. See you on the next step. Now practice what you've learnt, absorb what we've covered, and I'll see you in the next video.